chosen one. Listen carefully. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you so that this message can reach you in this exact moment. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. The atmosphere around you is shifting because a signal has been released from heaven. The alarm has sounded. You are standing at the edge of a divine test, one that will measure your faith, your obedience, and your endurance. What you do in the next hours will determine how tomorrow unfolds. You can feel it, can't you? That tension in your chest, that strange awareness that something unseen is happening. It is not anxiety, it is spiritual alertness. Heaven is stirring your spirit because the hour has arrived. Many people sense nothing. They are numb to spiritual things. But you, the chosen, cannot ignore it. You are awake in a sleeping world. You have seen the signs, felt the pressure, and heard the whispers in your heart saying, "Prepare yourself." This message is heaven's confirmation. The test is not coming, it has already begun. You are walking through it even now. Though you may not yet see its full form, it will expose your patience, your trust, your loyalty to God's purpose. But do not fear. This is not a punishment. It is preparation. The pain you've carried, the isolation you've endured, the confusion that's tried to break you, it was all training for what is about to be revealed. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 4, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." That verse is not just poetry, it is your reality. You are walking through shadows, but the presence of God has not left you. The silence you feel is not absence, it is observation. Heaven is watching how you respond when you cannot hear clear instructions. The silence is the exam room of faith. You were never ordinary. Since birth, your spirit has carried a weight that others cannot see. You were marked for something higher, and hell noticed it early. That's why your warfare has been heavier, your trials deeper, your betrayals sharper. You were being shaped for command. The battles that broke others only refined you. You thought you were being punished, but in truth, you were being prepared. Right now, as Friday approaches, the enemy is setting traps, small compromises, emotional distractions, sudden anger, familiar temptations, each one designed to make you forfeit your peace before your promotion. But heaven says, hold your ground. You are closer than you think. When the pressure intensifies, it's because the enemy senses what's about to break. He cannot stop it. So he tries to make you sabotage yourself before it arrives. Chosen one, stop doubting your discernment. The heaviness you feel tonight is not random. Heaven is alerting you because your time has come. You are being prepared for visibility, for leadership, for influence. But every promotion begins with a test. God will not place a crown on a head that refuses to bow in the waiting. He will not open the next door until obedience has been proven. So stand still. Do not panic. The shaking you feel is not destruction, it is rearrangement. Everything unstable is being exposed so that only what is divine can remain. Heaven is refining you through pressure, not punishing you. The same fire that consumes impurities will reveal gold in you. You have cried enough tears in secret. Heaven saw everyone. You've held on when you had nothing left. And that alone has qualified you. This Friday will not be your end. It will be your proving ground. You will look back and realize, this was the night everything shifted in your favor. Let this be your reminder. Your calling is too important to be casual. Guard your mind. Control your words. Protect your peace. Don't let the enemy provoke you into reactions that cost you your next level. When you feel attacked, worship. When you feel weary, pray. When you feel alone, remember, you are being observed by heaven. And when this message reaches the deepest part of your spirit, don't scroll away. Like this message as an act of agreement with heaven. Share it so another chosen one can wake before the test. Subscribe so that you do not miss the next instruction heaven will release through this voice. Now, as a prophetic sign of alignment and readiness, comment the number 7 below. Just that number. Let it be your silent declaration that you are listening, that you are ready, and that you will not fail this test. The hour is late. Heaven's alarm is sounding. You are not here by mistake. You are here because heaven trusts you with the truth. Walk boldly. Chosen one. The fire may come on Friday, but it will not consume you. It will crown you. You can almost feel it, the atmosphere tightening, the unseen weight pressing closer as Friday draws near. The air feels charged with tension, not of fear, but of battle. Something in the unseen realm is aligning itself against the chosen ones, and few can sense it. Yet your spirit cannot rest, because it already knows what's moving beneath the surface. The enemy is crafting his Friday trap, a final snare meant to shake your faith before your breakthrough unfolds. It always happens right before elevation. The enemy waits until you are tired, hopeful, and expecting something from God. He waits for the moment when you've prayed, but haven't yet seen results. When your heart is stretched thin and your emotions are fragile, that's when he whispers softly, subtly telling you that nothing's going to change, that maybe you misunderstood God, that perhaps your time has passed. But listen closely. This whisper is not truth. It's strategy. The enemy's weapon has never been power. It's always been persuasion. He doesn't destroy destiny through storms or chaos, but through suggestion. He plants thoughts that sound logical, thoughts that appear harmless, thoughts that tell you to take control instead of trusting God's timing. It was the same tactic in the garden long ago, the same tone, the same deception. Did God really say? And many fall because they entertain the question instead of silencing it. Chosen one. This is the snare you must recognize. The Friday trap is not an obvious disaster. It's a distraction dressed in reason. It appears as an easy escape, a compromise that promises relief. It will show up in your thoughts, your relationships, even in opportunities that seem perfect, but pull you away from your assignment. The trap doesn't look like danger, it looks like comfort. But you must discern the difference between peace and escape. Peace strengthens your faith, escape weakens it. Peace comes with clarity, escape comes with compromise. The test of Friday will be this: can you remain faithful when the shortcut looks more attractive than the promise? As written in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 21, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. This is the divine key for Friday. You cannot fight darkness on its terms. You conquer by staying in the light, by choosing good when evil provokes, by loving when bitterness tempts, by forgiving when revenge feels justified. The trap loses power when you refuse to match its energy. And yes, You will be provoked. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the more darkness will attempt to drag you into reaction. People may test your patience. Old habits may resurface. Emotions may flare without reason. But remember, none of it is random. You are being observed. And the test measures how you respond, not what happens to you. The enemy is hoping you forget who you are and fall back into who you were. Stay alert. Stay silent when needed. Not every battle deserves your energy. The enemy thrives on reaction, because reaction feeds his momentum, but restraint, that terrifies him. Every time you choose stillness over strife, peace over panic, you disarm his attack completely. Think of it, how many times have you nearly stepped into something destructive because it looked easier? How often did impatience almost make you forfeit what you had prayed for? The trap of Friday isn't meant to destroy you instantly. It's designed to delay you subtly. But even delay cannot stop what heaven has ordained if you remain steadfast. So, breathe. Center yourself in faith. Remember why you've come this far. This is not the time to question everything God told you. It's the time to anchor yourself deeper in trust. You do not need to fight every shadow. Light itself exposes what's false. Stand firm in truth, and every scheme will crumble. The enemy may plan the trap, but he cannot close it unless you step inside. Recognize the disguise. Resist the urge to react, and hold your ground in righteousness. Friday may bring pressure, but it cannot break you. The chosen ones always stand taller after the storm, not because the storm was weak, but because their foundation was unshakable. This is the hour to guard your peace like a crown. Watch your thoughts. Watch your tone. Watch your movements. Every decision now is a seed for tomorrow's harvest. Refuse to plant bitterness where God intends to grow blessing. The trap will fail because you will not fall for it. You have already been warned. You are already prepared. And when the snare snaps empty, heaven will smile because you overcame evil with good. And you proved once again that the chosen cannot be defeated, only refined. The silence is heavy tonight. You pray, but heaven seems quiet. You ask, but no answer comes. You look for signs, but nothing moves. It feels as though even the wind refuses to respond. This is the moment many fear, the hour when God goes silent. But hear this truth. Chosen one, silence is not absence. Heaven is not ignoring you. Heaven is testing your trust. When God seems still, it's because He's watching what you do without instruction. Anyone can obey when the voice is loud. But the true mark of maturity is faith that endures the quiet. This is the moment when motives are purified, when your trust is proven genuine. The silence isn't rejection, it's refinement. You've cried, Lord, speak to me. But He already has. His last instruction still stands. He won't repeat Himself until you've obeyed what was spoken before. The quiet season is not punishment. It's a classroom. And right now, you are seated in that room. It was always part of the process. Every great calling in Scripture had a silent season. Joseph waited in prison. David waited in caves. Even Jesus, before his ministry, was led into the wilderness with no audience. No applause, only silence and wild beasts. Heaven's pattern has never changed. It separates before it sends. In this silence, you are learning what noise once hid. You are learning the difference between God's presence and human approval. You are learning that true faith doesn't depend on constant confirmation. Faith that survives silence is faith that can hold nations. You may not realize it, but the quiet is producing authority in you. When this season ends, your words will carry a different weight, because they'll be birthed out of endurance, not emotion. Heaven is building something eternal inside you, something that can't be shaken by delay or doubt. Do not confuse stillness with stagnation. God is moving even when you can't trace Him. Right now, He's rearranging things behind the veil, aligning hearts, shifting opportunities, preparing the ground for your next step. What looks like stillness is actually divine synchronization. Sometimes the test isn't about waiting for His voice, it's about proving that you'll stay faithful without it. Many people lose their posture here. They panic. They complain. They force outcomes instead of trusting the process. But you, chosen one, must stand still. The teacher never speaks during the test. But the silence doesn't mean the teacher has left the room. This is the sacred tension of waiting. Your prayers echo. Your emotions tremble. Yet, deep down, something holy is being born. Patience. Patience is heaven's hidden anointing. It's what separates the called from the chosen. Anyone can begin, only the patient finish. So, what do you do when God goes silent? You worship anyway. You obey the last word you received. You stop demanding signs and start demonstrating faith. You remind yourself that your feelings are not the evidence your faith is. The enemy will try to twist the silence into doubt. He'll whisper, "See, even God has stopped talking to you." But you must answer, "No, He's still here, even if I can't hear Him." The proof of His presence is not always sound, it's peace. When your heart stays calm in chaos, that's heaven saying, "I'm still with you." There's a quiet power in people who can stand firm when everything seems uncertain. You are becoming that person. You are learning how to walk by faith, not by sight. You are learning to trust the unseen. And when the silence finally breaks, you'll realize it was never a delay, it was a setup. Now pause for a moment. Breathe deeply. You've made it through storms, betrayal, loneliness, and confusion. Yet, you're still here. That means you're stronger than the silence. You've already passed tests that others never survived. Don't give up now, when you're so close to hearing heaven again. Right now, Deep, I still believe. Yes, let those 3 words be your declaration. Your weapon against discouragement. Your way of saying to heaven, "I trust you." Even here, you're not typing for attention. You're typing as a prophetic act, affirming that the silence hasn't broken your faith. It's only made you louder inside. Remember this, when heaven is silent, it's because your next instruction requires maturity, and maturity is proven in quiet rooms. The silence will end. But when it does, you'll no longer be who you were. You'll be who you were always meant to become. The waiting is not wasted. It's working in you a strength that can no longer be shaken by fear or delay. Understand this clearly. Every moment of silence is sacred preparation. Heaven withholds sound so that your spirit can learn stillness. The quiet teaches you to hear in deeper frequencies, beyond noise, beyond emotion. When the next word from God comes, it will not meet a desperate heart, it will meet a ready one. That readiness is your victory. You've begun to notice it, the heaviness that sits differently on your shoulders. It isn't like ordinary stress or simple exhaustion. It's a spiritual weight, something sacred and demanding that only the chosen seem to carry. This weight is not punishment, it is responsibility. The heavens have placed it upon you because your spirit can bear what others cannot. The weight you're carrying isn't ordinary. It is proof that you are part of something eternal. Every chosen one reaches a season like this. It's the stage when your life feels stretched, when every burden seems multiplied, and yet, deep within, you sense that it's not meant to destroy you, it's meant to shape you. The pressure you feel is not random, it's divine intention pressing potential out of your spirit. You are being trusted with weight because heaven sees what you can carry. You've been asking God to use you, but to be used means to be stretched. Every calling demands capacity, and capacity is born in seasons of pressure. That's why your current pain is not a curse, it's construction. Look closely at what you're carrying. The sleepless nights, the responsibilities that never end, the unspoken battles inside your heart. All of it is molding you into something more enduring. You are being taught the language of perseverance. You are being refined to walk in an authority that comfort could never teach. The chosen path was never promised to be light. Even Jesus felt the weight of destiny pressing against his spirit in the Garden of Gethsemane. Greatness always carries heaviness before it manifests. But what the flesh calls burden, the spirit calls preparation. It's okay to admit that you're tired. Heaven isn't disappointed with your weariness. In fact, that exhaustion is often the evidence that you haven't given up. You are still standing, still pushing, still believing when quitting would have been easier. That persistence is strength disguised as struggle. Understand this. The anointing that rests upon your life is not cheap. It costs you isolation, misunderstanding, and seasons of waiting while others seem to advance faster. But do not envy their pace. God is building something deeper in you. He is anchoring your foundation so that when the wind blows, you will not fall. Every trial is a transaction. Each tear you shed is an investment into endurance. The pressure you feel is actually a sign that heaven has trusted you with more territory than before. When you feel the weight increase, it's often because your spiritual authority is expanding. You're learning to carry peace in chaos, to stand calm when everything around you shakes. That's divine maturity. Anyone can worship when life is easy, but the chosen worship under warfare. You are becoming the kind of person who can walk through storms and still radiate light. That is why your burden feels different. It carries purpose inside it. There's something sacred about endurance. It changes the way you see suffering. You begin to realize that every challenge was secretly growing something in you, faith that does not waver, hope that does not expire, love that does not collapse. That's the true power of the chosen. They are not spared from pain, but they rise through it. Your shoulders were built to carry destiny. That's why ordinary environments can no longer contain you. You outgrow circles, habits, and comfort zones. Not because you're proud, but because you are being lifted. Heaven increases your weight before it increases your visibility. The unseen season of struggle is what qualifies you for what's next. Remember this whenever you feel overwhelmed. What feels like breaking is often stretching. What feels like too much is heaven proving that you can handle more. You are not collapsing, you are being expanded. And one day soon, you'll look back on this season and realize that the very pressure you despised was the same pressure that prepared you for victory. You'll thank God for every weight you once tried to escape, because without it, you would never have become who you are now. The weight is holy. Carry it with grace, knowing that every ounce of pressure is purpose in disguise. You are not being crushed, you are being crafted. The weight you bear today is forming the strength you'll need tomorrow. What feels unbearable now will soon become the very proof that you were chosen to carry what others could not endure. So lift your head, breathe deeply, and keep walking. The same God who placed the weight upon you will also provide the grace to sustain you until glory replaces every tear. Friday stands before you, now like a glowing gate in the distance, one made of both light and fire. You can feel it pulling at your spirit. This is Friday's gate of fire, the passage that every chosen one must cross before stepping into the next dimension of purpose. It looks frightening from afar, but what waits on the other side is freedom. This gate is not a place of destruction, it's a furnace of purification. When you walk through it, everything false burns away. Fear, pride, doubt, insecurity. Only truth survives. It is the sacred fire that reveals who you truly are, when the illusions of comfort and control are stripped away. Imagine gold being refined. The fire doesn't create the gold, it reveals it. That's what's happening to you. The intensity you feel in this season is not meant to consume you, it's meant to expose the treasure within you. You've always carried light, but now heaven is letting the flame rise so others can see it. You may feel as though life has become too heavy, that people no longer understand your journey. But this isolation is not punishment, it's purification. God separates before He elevates. And when you pass through this gate, your words, your presence, and your prayers will carry a new authority that cannot be imitated or stolen. Many won't understand what you're enduring. They'll only see the glow after the fire. But you'll know it wasn't luck. It was refining. You'll realize that the pain you endured was actually the proof that you were chosen to stand where others fell. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 42:8, verse 10, it is written, I have refined you. Though not as silver, I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. This is that furnace. But instead of running from it, you are invited to walk through it boldly. You are not walking into flames alone. Heaven walks beside you. The same God who protected Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the same God standing with you now. And when you emerge, there will be no smell of smoke, only the scent of destiny fulfilled. The fire will have removed everything that no longer serves your calling. You'll move lighter, speak clearer, and love deeper. Chosen one, this is your refining hour. Let go of what cannot pass through the flame. Old fears, old grudges, old versions of yourself, release them now. If they follow you into the fire, they will not survive it. Now, pause here for a moment. If this message has found a flame within you, let your small spark join the larger fire. Tap like each touch is a spark, and together, sparks become torches that light the way for others still standing in the dark. When you share, imagine yourself passing a lantern to another traveler lost on a night road. Your one act of light could guide a heart that was ready to give up. And if you wish to stay where the flame keeps growing, subscribe. Think of it as keeping a candle burning in your window, so the next time heaven sends a message through this voice, it will find you again, ready and waiting in the glow. Lastly, there is something sacred, I must say gently. If this flame has warmed you and you feel moved, consider placing a small piece of wood on the fire. Donate, not as payment, but as participation. You are not giving to a voice, you are giving through it. Every ember you offer becomes fuel that helps this light reach one more soul trembling at their own gate of fire. It is never a condition, it is always a choice. Only give if peace rises within you. Even a tiny ember keeps the flame alive. So, as you step closer to your own Friday's gate of fire, remember, you are not just walking through it, you are lighting it for someone behind you. That is what chosen ones do. They do not escape the fire, they transform it into light for others to follow. And when you look back one day, you will realize that the fire never came to destroy you. It came to announce you. And when the flames finally fade, what remains will not be the ashes of what you lost, but the brilliance of who you became. The fire did not reduce you, it revealed the gold that was hidden all along. So walk forward, shining with quiet courage. Every step you take now carries warmth for another wandering soul. You are not just surviving the fire, you are becoming its living light, eternal and unstoppable. The fire begins to fade behind you now, and for the first time, you can breathe without trembling. Yet just when you think the test is over, another storm rises, not around you this time, but within you. It is the temptation of escape. Every chosen one meets this moment. It doesn't come with thunder or warning. It comes quietly, wrapped in exhaustion. It whispers, "You've done enough. You can rest now. Maybe the calling was too heavy. Maybe this fight isn't worth it." The voice is soft, almost kind, but its goal is destruction. It's strange how temptation rarely looks like rebellion. It often looks like relief. That's why it's so dangerous. It hides in comfort, in distraction, in the desire to stop pressing forward. You're not tempted to do evil, you're tempted to stop doing good. That is the enemy's last strategy before breakthrough. After the fire of Friday, your soul feels raw. You've survived the refining, but now fatigue sets in. The body wants rest, the mind wants silence. You tell yourself, maybe I'll just pause for a while. But in the spiritual realm, delay is not rest, it's drift. The current of the world begins to pull the weary heart backward. You've come too far to turn back now. Heaven didn't bring you through the fire to have you surrender at the gate of glory. Remember Elijah, after Mount Carmel, after calling down fire. He fled in fear. Victory can make even strong hearts vulnerable. Temptation doesn't always strike at your lowest point. Sometimes it waits until after success. When your guard is down, that's why heaven warns you. Don't let weariness become a doorway to retreat. The Word of God speaks clearly in the first letter of Peter, chapter 5, verse 8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The enemy doesn't need to destroy your faith outright. He just needs to lull it to sleep. The danger of Friday is not always the storm, it's the lull that follows it. You think you've made it, but that's when the enemy whispers, "You can relax. You don't need to pray like before." That's the lie. The temptation of escape is the counterfeit of peace. Real peace strengthens you. False peace sedates you. When you feel the pull to withdraw, test it. Does it bring clarity or confusion? Does it ignite purpose? or numb it, if it drains your fire, it's not rest, it's retreat. And yet, even in this temptation, heaven has mercy. The Spirit whispers gently, "Stay a little longer. Keep walking. You are standing in the in-between, too far to go back, yet not far enough to see the promise. But this middle ground is holy. It's where faith becomes maturity. You are learning the art of endurance. Heaven is not impressed by speed, but by persistence. As long as you keep moving forward, even slowly, you are winning. Take a breath. Remember why you started. The same faith that carried you through the fire still burns within. This temptation will pass. The pull to escape will fade when you realize the rest you crave isn't in stopping, it's in surrendering. True peace is not found outside the storm, but within God's will. Chosen one, heaven hasn't forgotten you. You may be weary, but you are not alone. Angels guard what was birthed in the fire. And before you move on, let your spirit answer heaven's call one more time. Comment the number 11 below. Just that number, simple, quiet, yet burning with meaning. 11 represents divine transition, the space between what was and what will be. It's the hour just before completion, the stretch where faith must finish what fire began. When you type 11, you're signing your name on heaven's scroll of perseverance. It's your silent declaration that you will not run, that even if the road shakes, you'll keep walking toward the promise. Each 11 typed becomes a beacon, small lights marking those who refuse to turn back. So type it, not for others, but as a whisper to God. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I'm still believing. The escape route may look safe, but only obedience leads to destiny. Stand firm, and soon you'll see what felt like pressure was really preparation. You are not running from the fire anymore. You are walking with it. And as you walk with the fire, you'll realize it no longer burns you, it lights your path. The flame that once tested you now travels beside you as proof of victory. Somewhere deep within you, something has shifted. You can feel it, even if you cannot name it. The air around your spirit feels sharper, clearer, as if unseen eyes are watching your every step. It is not paranoia, it is heaven's surveillance. The stage of hidden testing is over, and now heaven observes what has been formed in the secret place. This is not the kind of watching that waits for you to fail. It is the kind that records your faithfulness. Every sigh, every choice, every quiet decision you make when no one is looking becomes part of your spiritual record. Heaven is not testing your strength anymore, it's weighing your heart. You may think that small acts go unnoticed, that your endurance in silence has no audience. But the unseen realm is not blind. Angels stand witness to every act of obedience. They write, they record, they bear testimony. Heaven keeps a book, and your name is written across its pages, not as one who was perfect, but as one who endured. There is a holy gravity to this realization. The awareness that your life is being observed changes how you walk. It teaches you integrity, obedience that doesn't depend on applause. It makes you careful with words, gentle with time, discerning with emotion. The eyes of heaven are not heavy with judgment. They are bright with expectation. Sometimes you can feel those eyes most when you're alone, when the night is silent, and you whisper prayers that even you don't fully understand. That's when heaven leans closer. The Spirit doesn't just hear the words, he reads the weight behind them. You have to understand, faithfulness in private always precedes fruitfulness in public. What you build when no one sees will determine what you can sustain when everyone's watching. Many crave visibility without realizing that visibility demands accountability. To be seen by heaven first is a blessing, not a burden. Heaven's surveillance is not cold, it is intimate. Think of a craftsman watching his creation take shape. He doesn't watch to criticize, he watches to protect the process. In the same way, God watches over you, not to condemn, but to ensure that nothing interrupts what He's forming inside. There are days you might feel invisible to the world, overlooked, forgotten by people you once carried in prayer. Yet in those same hours, heaven's gaze is fixed on you more intensely than ever. The Father does not forget the worker in the vineyard just because the world does not see the fruit yet. Every moment of unseen labor adds weight to your crown. When you choose love over bitterness, heaven writes it down. When you forgive silently instead of fighting back, heaven applauds it. When you resist temptation, even though no one would ever know, heaven calls you trustworthy. Remember, your life is a living letter, and every line is read in eternity. The world may see only fragments, posts, smiles, brief glimpses, but heaven reads the unedited version, the tears, the hesitation, the whispered yes, when it would have been easier to say no. End of. And though heaven's eyes see everything, they look upon you with mercy. The recording is not meant to condemn, but to confirm. Every time you rise again after falling, the ink of grace rewrites your story. The record of your failure becomes a testimony of redemption. This is why you must walk with reverence, not fear, but awareness, knowing that your life is part of a larger conversation between heaven and earth changes everything. You no longer act for reaction, you act for recognition from above. There are angels stationed around you, even now, silent, steadfast, bearing witness. They record not just your victories, but your endurance. The moments you wanted to quit but didn't, the hours you stayed kind when anger felt easier, these are the marks of a soul heaven calls faithful. You may not feel spectacular, but heaven's archives say otherwise. You are becoming a reference of endurance, a story written to inspire those who come after you. Every step you take becomes a sentence in the divine narrative of perseverance. And when your season of watching ends, when heaven closes this chapter and opens the next one, you will discover that every hidden act of obedience built a bridge to your public purpose. You will not be crowned for the moments everyone saw. You will be crowned for the ones only heaven noticed. So walk wisely, but walk freely. You are not under surveillance to be restrained. You are being observed because you are trusted. Heaven's eyes follow you, not as a warden, but as a witness of destiny unfolding. Keep walking, chosen one. Every breath of endurance, every quiet decision, every act of love, unseen by men, but known by heaven, is shaping eternity itself. The air feels Keter now, yet a strange presence lingers near your thoughts. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't attack head-on, it circles softly, like fog seeping under a closed door. This is the subtle voice of doubt, the oldest weapon of darkness, elegant in disguise and deadly in delay. It rarely tells you to abandon faith outright. Instead, it asks questions that sound innocent. Are you sure you heard right? What if you misunderstood the timing? Maybe this isn't what God wanted after all. Doubt never denies God's existence. It simply questions his intention. And if the question stays too long, it erodes the certainty of purpose. You begin to notice how it shifts shape. Some days it wears the tone of reason. Be practical. Be realistic. Other days it wears compassion. Protect yourself. Don't hope too much. But behind every mask lies the same motive to disconnect you from trust. You are not alone in hearing that voice. Every chosen one, even the strongest, must face it. Abraham heard it when years passed without a promise fulfilled. Moses heard it in the desert when the people complained. Even Jesus heard it whispered in the wilderness, "If you are the Son of God." The enemy doesn't waste new tactics when old ones still work. Doubt aims not at your belief in God, but at your belief that God remembers you. It poisons your perception, convincing you that heaven's silence equals abandonment. It tells you that your prayers have expired, that maybe you are the exception to grace. But truth cuts deeper than lies. Faith is not a feeling, it is a choice repeated in silence. It's what you decide after the whisper ends. The enemy can plant a thought, but he cannot own your decision. The battlefield is the mind, and victory begins the moment you refuse to feed the voice. Scripture gives you a pattern to fight it. In the book of James, chapter 1, verse 6, it is written, "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. And the wave has no anchor, it moves wherever pressure pushes it." Doubt works the same way it steals stability. You can't build destiny on uncertainty, because a shaking mind produces a shaking path. That's why heaven calls you to anchor yourself again. You anchor through remembrance. Look back at what God has already done for you, the near misses, the impossible escapes, the moments when help came from nowhere. Those memories are your stones of testimony. Each one says, "He was faithful then, and he still is now." Oh, you anchor through worship. When doubt whispers, worship speaks louder. Worship doesn't ignore reality. It recenters it. It reminds every dark voice that you still know who reigns. You anchor through words. What you say shapes what you see. Speak faith until your spirit believes it again. Say, "I am not forgotten," until the echo of that truth fills the room. The voice of doubt cannot survive in an atmosphere of declaration. Understand this. Doubt often appears before revelation. It is the shadow that shows a new light is near. When you feel it pressing hardest, I know that heaven is close to unveiling something you've prayed for. That's why the enemy panics. He can sense what you can't see yet. Do not hate the season of questioning. It teaches discernment. You learn to recognize which thoughts carry peace and which carry pressure. You learn to separate your own inner noise from heaven's whisper. Doubt may visit, but it doesn't have the right to stay. And when the voice returns tomorrow, gentler but persistent, you'll be ready. You will not debate it, you will dismiss it. You will remember that faith doesn't need constant proof, it needs consistent trust. The fire of certainty is fed by choice, not evidence. So, breathe, steady your mind, and lift your eyes again. The whisper will fade once it realizes it cannot move you. The same voice that once frightened you will become background noise beneath your worship. Chosen one. Your faith is stronger than your questions. Heaven is not disappointed in you for feeling doubt. It is waiting for you to outlast it. And you will. because faith is not the absence of doubt, it is the courage to believe in spite of it. When this battle of the mind finally settles, you will realize the voice of doubt was never stronger than the whisper of faith within you. And from that quiet confidence, new vision will rise. What once wavered will now stand firm, and the faith you defended will begin defending you. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the light of revelation turns inward. It's no longer about the world outside, no longer about enemies or voices. It's about what's inside you. This is the mirror of conviction. You've faced storms, tests, and fire, but now heaven brings you before a reflection, not to shame you, but to reveal what remains unhealed. Conviction is not condemnation, it's divine correction, born from love. It doesn't come to expose your weakness, it comes to awaken your strength. When God holds up the mirror, He's not asking you to see failure, He's asking you to see truth. The truth of where your heart still hesitates. The truth of what you still cling to that cannot cross into the promise. Conviction whispers softly, not angrily, "This cannot go with you." It points not to what is wrong with you, but to what no longer fits your next season. Some attachments are not sinful, they're simply outdated. Heaven cannot pour new wine into old skins. This mirror moment is sacred. It humbles you, yet it heals you. You realize that growth doesn't come only from victory, it comes from honesty. It takes courage to look at yourself through heaven's eyes and still say, "I'm willing to change." No, it was David who prayed, "Search me, O God, and know my heart." He understood that unchecked hearts breed hidden rebellion. The greatest warfare often begins within, not outside. Pride, bitterness, fear, these are the unseen enemies that sabotage divine progress. But when conviction visits, mercy stands beside it. Heaven never reveals what it isn't ready to redeem. The moment God shows you something to confront, He's already provided grace to overcome it. Conviction is the signal that transformation is near. As written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 10, godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret. But worldly sorrow brings death. That is the difference. The sorrow that heaven sends doesn't crush, it cleanses. It doesn't remind you of shame, it reminds you of destiny. When tears flow under conviction, they are washing away what cannot remain. You may feel the sting of recognition, the quiet ache that says, "Yes, I did that. I thought that. I became that." But let the tears fall, they are liquid healing. Heaven reads repentance not in words, but in willingness. The mirror is not punishment, it's preparation. Before God promotes, He purifies. Before He reveals you to the world, refines you in private. The mirror of conviction ensures that when doors open, your heart won't collapse under the weight of what you prayed for. This is why conviction must be embraced, not avoided. To resist it is to delay deliverance. Many run from this mirror, hiding behind busyness, distraction, or denial. But the courageous stay, look deeply, and whisper, "I surrender." And that surrender is where peace returns. You no longer fight yourself. You align with heaven. You stop explaining away what the Spirit exposes and start letting Him remove it. Conviction is the surgeon's hand, precise, purposeful, healing through cutting away. When the Spirit convicts, It's because he still believes in your transformation. If heaven had given up on you, there would be no correction at all. Conviction means God still sees potential. The moment you feel that gentle tug of the heart, it's proof that you're still chosen. And right now, if this message reaches deep within and you feel that quiet stirring, don't run. Let it do its work. Let it make you whole. Now, take a moment and type, "I surrender now." Yes. Those 3 words. Short, but powerful. Let them be your acknowledgement that you've seen the mirror and you accept its mercy. When you type them, you're not announcing failure, you're declaring readiness. You're saying, "I'm done hiding. I choose healing." And conviction is heaven's gift wrapped in discomfort. Receive it, and you'll find peace waiting on the other side. You are not being judged, you are being restored. And when you rise from this mirror moment, lighter and clearer than before, you'll understand. Conviction never came to break you, it came to bless you. When you walk away from that mirror, a new reflection forms, not of guilt, but of grace. You'll see strength where there was fear, clarity where confusion once lived, and peace where shame used to echo. Conviction has done its holy work. Understand this clearly. Conviction is not about looking back, it's about stepping forward lighter. The mirror doesn't remind you of who you were, it reveals who you're becoming. Every surrendered flaw becomes fuel for transformation. And heaven smiles as you finally begin to reflect its light without distortion. The night deepens. The hour before deliverance always feels the longest. It is the moment before midnight, that fragile space where your strength wanes, your hope flickers, and heaven seems just out of reach. Every chosen one knows this hour. It is the intersection between exhaustion and expectation, where the heart whispers, "How much longer?" The world sleeps while your spirit wrestles. You look around and see nothing moving, yet something unseen is aligning. The silence before breakthrough is deceptive. It feels like stillness, but it is actually the sound of heaven gathering momentum. When nothing seems to happen, that is often when everything is happening. You are standing in the tension between prophecy and fulfillment. Heaven has already declared it. The earth is still catching up. It's like watching dawn from behind the mountains. You can't see the sun yet, but the horizon has already begun to glow. In this waiting, you may feel stretched thin. But remember, midnight is not the end of the day, it's the turning point. Everything changes quietly when the clock passes 12. What was once darkness begins to make room for light, even if the sky hasn't changed color yet. As spoken in the book of Psalms, chapter 30, verse 5, "Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." This verse doesn't just promise relief, it reveals rhythm. Every sorrow carries within it the seed of joy. Midnight may weep, but morning always sings. The same God who allowed the storm also commands the sunrise. You've been faithful through the silence and the refining. Heaven has seen your tears, counted your steps, and heard every whispered prayer. Now, as you stand at the edge of midnight, you are closer than you think. But heaven asks one last thing: hold on a little longer. The final test of faith is endurance without evidence. When your eyes see nothing but your spirit still says, "Yes, Lord," that's when heaven knows you are ready. You are being prepared not just for blessing, but for stewardship. What's coming will not just comfort you, It will commission you. And as you stand in this sacred stillness, I want to pause not to demand, but to invite. If this message has found its way to your heart, if it has met you in that fragile space before your own dawn, then let's keep this flame alive together. When you like, imagine it as striking a match in the dark, a tiny flame joining thousands of others across the world. Each click becomes a light that tells heaven, I am awake, I am waiting. When you share, picture it as opening a window for someone still trapped in their night. You might not know who needs it, but your one act can let light spill into a room where hope has been silent for too long. When you subscribe, think of it as keeping a candle on your windowsill, your way of saying, I want to stay close to the light. I want to be found ready when the next word comes. Then, and for those whose hearts feel stirred deeper, listen carefully. There is no demand, only invitation. If you feel led, if this message has strengthened you, or reminded you that you are not alone in the waiting, consider adding a small piece of wood to the flame. Donate, not as a requirement, but as a gesture of gratitude and participation. Every contribution, no matter how small, becomes part of a greater fire that warms hearts across the world. You're not paying for words, you're sustaining light. You're keeping the oil burning so that another weary soul can find direction in their own midnight hour. Think of this space as a lantern house on a cliff. The ships at sea don't see the keeper, but they see the light, and that light keeps them from crashing into despair. When you help sustain that lantern, you're helping guide unseen souls safely to shore. No one is watching, no one is counting, and no one is required. But if your heart feels the gentle nudge to keep the light burning, follow that peace. It's not an obligation, it's worship through generosity. Chosen one, your midnight will not last forever. The clock is already turning, and the first notes of morning are humming through the heavens. Hold your posture, guard your flame, and wait with hope, because soon, very soon, the same night that tried to bury you will have to testify that it couldn't keep you. Morning is already rising on your name, and when the first light touches your face, you'll understand why heaven asked you to wait. The delay was never denial, it was preparation for a dawn made just for you. The clock strikes midnight, and everything grows still. You've endured the shaking, resisted the temptation, and walked through the fire. Now heaven issues a command so simple yet so powerful, it almost feels impossible. Stand still. This is the command of trust, the final posture of faith. Standing still doesn't mean doing nothing. It means refusing to move in fear. It is the strength to stay when every instinct screams to run. In spiritual warfare, stillness is not weakness, it's alignment. You are not frozen, you are fixed in obedience. There are seasons when heaven fights through your hands, and there are seasons when heaven fights while you stand. This moment belongs to the latter. The same God who parted the Red Sea didn't ask his people to build a bridge. He asked them to stand still and see his salvation. Stillness is the battlefield of trust. When you stop striving to fix what only God can finish, heaven moves in ways your effort never could. The need to control is often the greatest enemy of breakthrough. God cannot fill hands that refuse to let go. This is what it means to mature in faith, to understand that your strength isn't always shown by motion, but by surrender. Standing still is choosing peace in the presence of uncertainty. It's believing that the God who began your story will also conclude it with victory. In the book of Exodus, Chapter 14, verse 13. It is written, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Those words weren't spoken in calm, they were shouted over chaos. The Israelites stood with the sea before them and an army behind them, trapped between danger and deliverance. Yet God didn't panic. He commanded peace. And in that stillness, the impossible opened. Chosen one. That's where you are, now, the in-between, where logic ends and faith begins. Heaven isn't asking you to fight harder, only to hold your ground. Your posture is your weapon. Your calm is your authority. The moment you stop running from fear, fear loses its power to chase you. Standing still doesn't mean denying emotion. It means mastering it. You can cry and still be steady. You can tremble and still be faithful. Heaven measures your faith not by the absence of fear, but by your ability to obey despite it. This command feels simple, but it's one of the hardest lessons in spiritual life. Movement feels productive, waiting feels wasteful. But what if the miracle is already in motion, and your stillness is the signal that heaven can release it? Sometimes the act of standing is the loudest form of obedience. There's power in quiet confidence. While others rush to solve everything, you'll remain anchored. You'll stop forcing outcomes and start trusting timing. The world calls that passivity, but heaven calls it posture. This is how divine warriors rest, with their feet planted in peace and their hearts hidden in faith. Look back at your journey. Every storm you thought would drown you ended up revealing your endurance. Every delay that frustrated you actually trained your spirit. Now you know the difference between reaction and revelation. You no longer run from pressure, you rise through it. Stillness is proof that you've learned heaven's rhythm. You no longer chase signs, you recognize them. You no longer demand answers, you discern seasons. That's maturity. That's what makes the chosen unshakable. You might not see movement yet, but silence is not stagnation. Heaven is aligning outcomes you can't yet perceive. The threads of destiny are being woven, even as you read these words. What feels like pause is actually placement. God positions before He performs. And soon, you will understand why this command mattered. You will see the seas part in front of you, the obstacles that looked permanent, suddenly moving aside like obedient waves before divine command. The path you thought was closed will appear, illuminated by grace. So remain steady. Keep your spirit quiet. Don't let panic rewrite your prophecy. The God who began the promise is faithful to finish it. All He asks of you right now is to stand feet rooted, heart surrender, eyes lifted. In this holy stillness, heaven moves. The sound you cannot hear yet is the sound of victory forming behind the veil. When it reaches you, you'll realize that standing still was never about waiting, it was about witnessing. You are not frozen in fear, you are anchored in faith. And soon, the winds will shift, the waves will bow, and heaven will whisper, "Now walk forward." No, you have stood still, and heaven has seen your faith. The winds have settled. The waters before you begin to ripple with quiet light. But now comes the hardest part of all, the test of waiting. Waiting is not just the absence of movement, it is the presence of trust. It is easy to obey when instructions are clear, but it takes a different kind of strength to stay faithful when heaven goes silent again. You are no longer fighting the storm, you are fighting time. Time tests what the fire refined. It stretches patience, challenges endurance, and exposes hidden expectations. You begin to ask questions in the quiet, when? Lord, how much longer? But waiting is not punishment, it is protection. Heaven delays only to deliver correctly. You see, when God makes a promise, He also prepares you to hold it. What looks like delay is often divine development. The waiting season is heaven's workshop. It's where your heart learns to depend on presence, not progress. The blessing that arrives too soon can become a burden. That's why heaven sometimes hides it until you're ready. The Word of God reminds us in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 25. The Lord is good to those who wait for Him, to the soul that seeks Him. Uplift. Notice that it doesn't say those who wait perfectly, but those who wait faithfully. Heaven honors consistency more than speed. Every sunrise you face without giving up is a silent testimony written in the records of eternity. The test of waiting feels subtle at first. You wake each morning wondering if today is the day something will finally shift. You see others receiving answers, doors opening for them, while yours remain closed. Doubt knocks softly. But your spirit remembers the same God who writes their story hasn't forgotten yours. Patience isn't passive, it's spiritual posture. It's standing tall, while your circumstances whisper that nothing is changing. It's choosing to keep your faith warm when the world grows cold. You may not see it, but roots are growing beneath your stillness. Waiting is where unseen strength takes root. The chosen always wait longer because their calling carries more weight. Heaven cannot rush what eternity intends to last. Quick blessings feather fast, but refined blessings endure. What's forming for you now is not fragile, it's foundational. There will be days when you want to move, to force something, to open your own doors. But pause and breathe. Every locked door has a key. Heaven simply hasn't handed it to you yet. The delay is not rejection, it's synchronization. God is aligning the pieces you can't see, so that when He says now, everything fits perfectly. Waiting teaches surrender. It strips away pride and teaches peace. You learn that being still doesn't mean being forgotten. It means heaven is moving for you in the background, beyond your visibility. Every second of patience becomes a seed of wisdom that will bloom later when you lead others through their waiting. Think of the farmer. He plants the seed and walks away. He doesn't dig it up to check its progress. He trusts the process of time. Heaven is calling you to do the same, to trust that even in silence, growth is happening. And now, in this quiet space, heaven invites you to mark your endurance with a simple sign. Comment the number 22 below. 22 is the number of divine order and completion of waiting. It represents the moment when what was hidden becomes visible, when promises ripen, and when silence turns into sound. When you type 22, you're not signaling impatience, you're declaring trust. You're saying, I'm still waiting, but my faith hasn't expired. Allah, let that number be your signature of surrender, your seal of patience. Heaven reads numbers differently. They become declarations in the unseen realm. Every 22 typed becomes a symbol of readiness, a quiet whisper to heaven. Your timing, not mine. Olam. Chosen one, you have waited through darkness and doubt, yet your faith remains intact. You've proven that you can be trusted not only with promises but with process. Waiting has not weakened you, it has purified your motives. and strengthened your resolve. So hold steady a little longer. The delay is almost done. The promise is gathering momentum behind the veil. When the time comes, what took years to form will manifest in a moment. Patience is your weapon now. Keep your heart calm and your eyes lifted. The test of waiting is nearly over. And when it ends, you'll realize it was never wasted time. It was the foundation of your future. The waiting has stretched long, but at last, the silence begins to tremble. You sense something shifting, not loudly, not suddenly, but with the steady rhythm of destiny awakening. What was hidden is about to be revealed. This is the revelation of the hidden plan. Heaven never forgets its promises. It simply hides them until the right moment. Like seeds buried deep beneath the soil, the waiting was never emptiness, it was incubation. Now the soil begins to break, and what once looked lifeless starts to move. You may not realize it yet, but everything that seemed delayed or denied was part of a divine blueprint. The setbacks that confused you were not detours, they were directions. Each closed door redirected your steps toward alignment. Every no you received was protection in disguise. Heaven has been weaving your timeline with precision. There are seasons when God reveals His power, and seasons when He reveals His purpose. You've seen the first in miracles and provision, now you are entering the second. The revelation of the hidden plan is not about what you're receiving, it's about understanding why you went through what you did. Every heartbreak, every loss, every unanswered prayer begins to form a pattern now. What once looked like chaos reveals divine symmetry. The dots start connecting, and you realize that nothing was wasted. The nights you cried in silence were watering seeds of strength that could not have grown any other way. In the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, the Word of God reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Oh, you see, heaven doesn't improvise, it orchestrates. Even your mistakes were measured and redeemed within the plan. The parts of your story you once wished you could erase now serve as evidence of grace. The detours became testimonies, and the pain became preparation for purpose. When the revelation comes, it's rarely loud. It arrives like dawn breaking through fog, soft, patient, certain. Suddenly, you begin to understand why certain people had to leave, why certain prayers were delayed, and why certain seasons felt endless. What felt like loss was actually liberation. What looked like silence was strategy. This revelation humbles you. You realize that while you were doubting, heaven was designing. While you were weeping, angels were arranging. You were never forgotten. You were being positioned. The waiting season that once felt like punishment now becomes proof of divine precision. And when you finally see the plan unfold, gratitude floods your heart. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "Thank you." Because now you understand, if things had gone your way, you would have settled too soon. Heaven withheld what you wanted to give you, what you needed. There's beauty in hindsight. But revelation adds something deeper. It gives peace in the present. You begin to walk lighter. Not because life has become easier, but because your perspective has matured. You no longer fear delay. You understand its purpose. You no longer resist pruning. You recognize it as preparation for fruitfulness. The hidden plan is not just about you, it's about everyone. Your life will touch. Your endurance has built bridges for others who will come after you. Your testimony will become a map for those still wandering in their wilderness. The revelation you carry is not meant to be hoarded, but shared. This unveiling also marks a shift in authority before revelation. You walked by faith after revelation. You walk by understanding. Faith built your foundation, but understanding gives you direction. Now you move with calm confidence, knowing that heaven's timing was never behind, it was always exact. There's a quiet strength that comes with revelation. You no longer fight to be seen. You rest in being known. You no longer chase validation. You trust confirmation. What used to shake you now teaches you. You've moved from asking for signs to becoming one. As the light of understanding settles over your heart, you realize that revelation doesn't remove mystery, it sanctifies it. You don't need to know everything to trust God. You just need to remember how far He's brought you. Chosen one. This is the beauty of the hidden plan. It was never about control. It was about transformation. Heaven wasn't trying to make sense to you. It was making strength in you. And now that strength will carry you into everything that comes next. The revelation has come, not to end your journey, but to prepare you for the reward that waits just ahead. It begins quietly, almost without warning, the trembling that signals something sacred approaching. The air feels alive, charged with unseen power. The long night gives way to the faint glow of dawn. You can sense it before you see it. This is the Friday breakthrough. Breakthrough rarely arrives with fanfare. It doesn't shout your name or knock loudly at your door. It slips in through the smallest crack of faith left open. Sometimes it appears in a conversation, a letter, a moment of unexpected clarity. Other times, it unfolds in silence, like a seed finally breaking through soil after 1,000 invisible days. You have prayed, waited, and endured. And now heaven moves. The doors that refused to open suddenly unlock. What was tangled begins to align. The same circumstances that once overwhelmed you now start to make sense under heaven's new order. You realize breakthrough doesn't come to change God's mind, it comes to reveal His timing. You remember the long hours when you thought nothing was working, when you whispered prayers into the void. Yet now, every tear, every act of obedience, every quiet yes gathers together into divine momentum. Heaven has been collecting your persistence, and now it releases the answer in perfect measure. In the second book of Samuel, chapter 5, verse 20, David declared, "The Lord has broken through my enemies before me, like a breaking flood." That is what breakthrough feels like. It doesn't arrive politely, it bursts forth with purpose. The pressure that once confined you becomes the force that propels you forward. Just as water builds behind a dam until it can no longer be contained, your obedience has built a flood of grace waiting for release. And when it comes suddenly. One moment, everything seems ordinary. The next, everything changes. Not because the world has shifted, but because heaven has decided the time is now. The silence breaks. The waiting ends. You stand not as the same person who began the journey, but as one refined, renewed, and ready. Breakthrough doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. The wounds that once bled now glow with healing. The betrayals that once broke you now bless you with wisdom. The tears that fell in secret have become the water that nourished your future. Heaven wastes nothing. There is a holiness to this moment that few understand. Breakthrough is not merely reward, it is recognition. It is heaven saying, I saw you when no one did. I watched you stay when you could have run. I honor the faith that endured. And it's not always about material blessing. Sometimes breakthrough is peace, where anxiety once ruled. Sometimes it's forgiveness, where bitterness used to thrive. Sometimes it's simply waking up one morning and realizing you're no longer afraid. The invisible prison has been opened from within. You will feel a strange calm follow your victory. The same silence that once tormented you now comforts you. Because now you understand that silence doesn't mean absence, it means completion. The God who once seemed far has proven he was near all along. Breakthrough reintroduces you to yourself. You see your reflection differently now, not through the lens of failure, but through the eyes of grace. You realize you were never losing, you were learning. Every closed door, every tear, every delay was heaven constructing the road beneath your feet. As you stand in this new light, gratitude floods your spirit. You no longer envy anyone's path. You're too busy honoring your own. You finally understand that comparison was a thief, and contentment is your inheritance. Now, every step you take carries quiet authority. You walk lighter because the chains have fallen. You speak clearer because fear no longer dictates your voice. You move freely because purpose now holds your hand. Breakthrough doesn't end your dependence on God, it deepens it. You realize that the same grace that opened this door must guide you through it. You've passed the test, but your journey of stewardship has just begun. Take a moment and breathe. Feel the weight lift from your chest. You made it through the night that tried to bury you. Heaven's dawn has found you faithful. This is your Friday breakthrough, the proof that divine timing is never late, that every tear has an appointment, and that nothing is truly lost when heaven writes the story. Soon, others will see the glow upon your life and wonder how you did it. But you will know it wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was faith refined in fire, now shining as gold before the eyes of heaven. And this light, this peace, this strength, you'll carry it forward as the seal of your endurance and the mark of your divine transformation. You stand now on the other side of fire, no longer trembling but glowing. The ashes beneath your feet tell a story that words cannot capture. You have survived the refining, endured the silence, passed the waiting, and what stands here now is not who began the journey. This is the moment when the chosen rise from the ashes. There's a sacred beauty in ruin transformed into renewal. Every ember that once burned against you now burns within you. You've become the fire you once feared. The darkness that once intimidated you now flees at your light. Heaven didn't remove your scars, it crowned them with meaning. Your journey has not been easy, but it has been holy. You were stripped of comfort so that strength could be revealed. You were isolated so that clarity could grow. Every delay was divine sculpting. Every tear a chisel in the hands of grace. The chosen are not made on mountains, they are forged in valleys. That's why your rise feels different. It's quiet but unstoppable. You don't roar, you radiate. You carry peace that confuses chaos, calm that silences storms. As written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. This is your verse, your living proof. What others thought would destroy you became the reason you shine. The oil of joy now drips from what once bled. Heaven has turned your mourning into melody. And now, with light returning to your steps, you become more than a survivor. You become a signal. Others will find their direction through your endurance. Your rise is not a boast, it's a beacon. You are the evidence that pain does not end in defeat, but in destiny. Pause here for a breath. The story of your survival is sacred, and every sacred thing deserves to be shared. If this message has found you, touched you, or reminded you that light still follows darkness, let your small act become a spark. When you like, imagine it as a single ember lifting into the night sky. It joins countless others, creating constellations of faith across the darkness. Each ember says, "The fire did not end me, it awakened me." And when you share, picture it as blowing gently on a fading flame. Somewhere, someone's spirit is cold, their faith dim. Your gesture could send warmth where it's needed most. You are not promoting words, you are passing fire. When you subscribe, think of it as building a small altar within your own heart. A place where these words can return to remind you of who you are when life grows noisy again. Every altar burns quietly but constantly, a reminder that heaven's voice still speaks. And when your heart feels stirred by what you've just heard, leave a comment below, a simple phrase that carries your light. You could write something short, like, "Still rising," "Light lives here," or any words your soul chooses. Think of it as carving your initials on the wall of a sacred place, not to be noticed, but to say, "I was here, I rose too." And now, something even more personal, an invitation, not an instruction. If this message has brought peace, courage, or comfort, and your heart feels led, consider placing a small piece of wood upon this shared fire. Donate, not out of duty, but as devotion. Giving is not payment, it's participation. Every ember you offer becomes fuel for another flame, yet to rise. You're not giving to a message, you're giving through it, allowing it to reach the next weary soul who has forgotten that ashes can bloom. Think of this space as a quiet garden in the middle of chaos. Each act of generosity plants another seed. Some seeds will grow into comfort for the broken, others into courage for the lost. You may never meet those who are touched by it, but heaven will. If peace settles in your spirit as you hear this, follow that peace. It's not obligation, it's alignment. The truest giving always flows from still hearts, chosen one. Your rise is not for applause, it's for illumination. The world needs living examples of resilience, souls like yours who turned fire into fragrance and wounds into wisdom. Keep walking with your head high and your heart open. You are no longer marked by what broke you, but by what built you. Every breath you take now testifies that grace always wins. And as you move forward, remember this: every small act of kindness, every gesture of light, every spark shared keeps the world from going dark. You are not only the survivor of the storm, you are now the keeper of its fire. The air feels lighter now. The heaviness that once clung to your chest has loosened, replaced by an unfamiliar calm. It is not the calm of relief, it is the calm of realization. You have passed through fire and silence, through temptation and endurance. And now heaven begins to unveil what your heart has longed for. This is the reward for endurance. It comes not in gold or glory, but in something far more lasting peace. A peace that no circumstance can steal, no voice can shake. The kind of peace that arrives quietly, sits beside you, and whispers, "You made it." Oh, this is the portion of those who did not give up. The world rewards speed, but heaven rewards endurance. The crown you wear now was not won in applause, but in perseverance. You held your faith when others doubted. You stood when others sat down. That is the mark of the chosen. The reward does not always come wrapped in miracles. Sometimes it comes in perspective. You begin to see how everything fit together: the pain, the waiting, the losses. The very moments that once broke you now make sense in the light of divine purpose. The ache that used to echo inside your chest now hums with gratitude. In the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, it is written, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest, if we do not give up." The harvest is here. Though it may not look like what you expected, it may come as restored strength, renewed joy, or a softness in your heart that wasn't there before. The reward of endurance is not always external, it's internal transformation. You've become unshakable, not because you avoided pain, but because you learned how to walk through it with grace. Endurance has changed your posture. You no longer beg heaven for answers, you listen for instruction. You no longer see obstacles as punishment, but as preparation. What once terrified you now trains you. You've moved from reaction to revelation, from striving to surrender. That is your true promotion. Heaven's reward for endurance is always multiplied wisdom. The lessons you've learned in private now become light for others who wander. Your scars have become scripture written upon your soul, each one telling a story of grace that did not fail. You no longer speak from theory, you speak from survival. And that authority cannot be imitated, it must be lived. There is also a holy reversal that happens here. The very places where you were broken become the places you now carry healing. The relationships that wounded you birthed compassion. The seasons that drained you produced discernment. You have become an answer where once you were a question. Endurance doesn't just bless you, it transforms your surroundings. People will begin to sense something different when you enter the room. They won't know what changed, but heaven will. It's the weight of glory, the quiet radiance of a spirit that refused to give up. This is what heaven was building in you all along. Not comfort, but character. Not applause, but authority. Not ease, but endurance. The reward is that you can now stand in storms and not be moved. You have become a refuge for others, a living testimony that survival is possible. It's strange, isn't it? You once prayed for relief, but now you thank God for resilience. You once begged for escape, but now you bless the endurance that shaped you. The very fire you feared became the forge that formed you. Look at how far you've come. The you who started this journey would barely recognize who you are now. That is victory. That is transformation. Heaven's reward isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a stillness that fills every empty space. Sometimes it's waking up and realizing you're not afraid of tomorrow anymore. That quiet confidence is your crown. You have reached the place where peace lives. And though the world may never fully understand what it took for you to stand here, heaven does. Every tear, every prayer, every moment of endurance was seen. The reward is not only what you've gained, it's who you've become. You are no longer the one who hopes for strength, you are the embodiment of it. The one who once asked, "How will I make it?" now stands as the answer. This is what endurance births: clarity, courage, and calm. You have inherited all three. So rest, chosen one. The test has ended. The lesson remains. And the reward, this unshakable peace, is the sign that heaven's work in you has been completed perfectly. The night has passed. The final breath of darkness lingers on the horizon, and the first light of tomorrow begins to glow. You can almost hear it, the soft rhythm of heaven turning a new page. This is the moment before tomorrow dawns. The space between ending and beginning. You stand at that threshold, weary yet awake, humbled yet radiant. Everything that needed to break has broken. Everything that needed to rise has risen. What lies ahead will not be a repeat of the past. It will be the reward of it. The trials have not merely shaped you, they have positioned you. Heaven moves in patterns, and this pattern has reached its completion. You have gone through fire, silence, temptation, revelation, and breakthrough. Now heaven speaks again, not through thunder, but through peace. Guard what I have given you. Now, for every chosen one, the greatest challenge after victory is preservation. Not every enemy attacks from the outside. Some return disguised as comfort. After storms, the heart must learn how to rest without sleeping. It's easy to stay alert in warfare, harder to stay awake in peace. This new day comes with clarity, but also with responsibility. You've been entrusted with wisdom that others may not yet understand. Your experiences were not for spectacle, but for stewardship. You carry light that must be protected. It's fragile like flame, but powerful enough to guide many. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14, Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Demo, that light now burns within you. It's not the flicker of survival anymore. It's the steady glow of transformation. You are no longer waiting for rescue. You have become a rescuer. You are no longer searching for purpose. You are walking in it. Before tomorrow dawns fully, heaven asks you to prepare your spirit, not for another battle, but for a greater assignment. You are being positioned as a voice, an anchor, a witness. Your story will become someone else's signpost. Your endurance, another's instruction. Guard your crown carefully. The crown isn't jewelry, it's awareness. It's knowing who you are and refusing to forget it when life becomes ordinary again. After great moments of glory, the danger is always drift. Familiarity dulls gratitude, and distraction dims discernment. Stay awake in blessing as you did in battle. The new dawn will not require the same fight, but it will demand the same faith. Faith that listens before speaking. Faith that builds instead of proving. Faith that stands firm even when the crowd changes direction. This is mature faith, the kind born only through endurance. You may feel uncertain about what's next, but don't rush to define it. Some revelations need silence to root. Give tomorrow time to unfold. The same God who guided you through darkness will guide you through daylight. Just because the light has come doesn't mean the guidance ends. It means your listening becomes gentler. Look around you. The world you are stepping into is not the same one you left behind. People have changed. Priorities have shifted. But so have you. You no longer move from desperation, but from direction. You've learned that power isn't noise, it's knowing. Take a moment to breathe. Feel the morning air against your skin. This is what freedom feels like. Not the absence of struggle, but the absence of fear. You've learned that peace doesn't mean life stops shaking. It means you no longer do. You carry evidence now, evidence that God sustains, that fire refines, that silence teaches. You are living proof that grace finishes what it starts. Heaven didn't choose you for perfection, but for perseverance. And you have fulfilled that purpose with faith that never quit. When tomorrow finally dawns, you will walk into it differently, not as someone begging for direction, but as someone embodying it. Your steps will carry authority, your presence, peace. The same people who once doubted your endurance will see your radiance and understand that heaven was never late. It was exact. This new season won't shout, it will whisper. It will not demand, you'll simply know. The voice that once said, "Stand still," now says, "Walk forward," and you will. Calmly and courageously. Because you've learned that destiny doesn't rush, it unfolds. The light is rising higher now, painting the horizon gold. The world wakes unaware that heaven has marked this dawn as yours. What was once a battlefield becomes a garden. What was once waiting becomes walking. Before tomorrow fully arrives, take one last look behind, not to mourn, but to marvel. Every scar is a signature of survival. Every tear, a seed that grew into wisdom. Nothing was wasted. Every breath brought you here. You have passed the final test. Tomorrow awaits not as a threat, but as a promise kept. The journey has reached its final page. But your story continues beyond these words. What you've walked through, what you've survived, what you've become, it all matters. The fire, the silence, the waiting, the revelation, all of it was heaven's way of shaping you into light. And now that light is meant to move outward, if this message has found you, stirred you, or reminded you of your divine strength, let your small act of gratitude become part of the movement. When you imagine it as lighting a candle on the altar of remembrance, saying, "I was here, I heard, I'm still standing." And when you share, see it as opening a window in a dark house. Somewhere, someone is still trapped in their own night. Your act could let a single beam of hope slip inside. When you comment, let your words be a stone placed gently along the path for others to find their way. Write what your spirit whispers, "I rise again," "still chosen," or any truth your heart has discovered here. When you subscribe, think of it as keeping a small flame alive within your home. The next time heaven speaks through these messages, that flame will recognize the sound. And if your heart feels peace in this moment, if gratitude moves quietly within you, consider adding one more ember to this fire. Donate, not as an obligation, but as a love offering. Your giving keeps the lantern lit for the next soul searching for direction. No one is asked, only invited. Every act of light, every gesture of kindness, every shared spark carries this mission further than one voice ever could. You are the continuation of this message. Carry the fire. Keep the light alive.